Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I'm your host, Paul Onnit, and today I am joined by someone who I had the pleasure of meeting at Coaching Con a few weeks ago. He's someone who I've known and followed kind of on the periphery, and I didn't really realize the depth of things that he's both accomplished and accomplishing in the industry over the years. Luka Hocevar, man, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure to be on the show, man. Pleasure to be on the show.
It's uh it's always really cool. We were chatting a little bit before and I was like, yeah, let's press start because everyone I've spoken to speaks extremely highly of you. You're someone who, by all intents and purposes, has accomplished a ton in this industry. But I was saying the biggest KPI for me when I look at someone who is quote unquote successful is they have a big smile on their face all the time. And you had a smile on your face the whole time from the moment you got to that conference to the moment you stepped out. So, man, why are you so happy?
What a great question.
I
I
lead
like
him
we could
off a banger.
unravel now the next 3 hours and go into like a psychedelic journey. But I mean, look, I think this will sound corny, man. Like I'm one of the people that look, I have challenging times, hard times. I mean, we can talk about that. I'll try to pretend like, everything is upsy daisy all the time. Especially, I would probably say that most people would probably lean towards saying I'm a workaholic. But let me zoom out, right?
Yeah.
I I love what I do. I love what we do. And I think I get to do it. I don't have to do it, right? And I think that perspective, I'm sure some people have heard this before, right? But I get up every morning and sometimes, like I got some really long days, and essentially a lot of it I choose at this point in time in my life.
For sure.
Um, and I couldn't, I, I can tell you, like, I don't know, Wednesday, I sub, one of our coaches took time off. I subbed for him. I got up at 4:45, ran at 5:30. Usually I don't do that, but I went from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's a 17-hour day. And I came home and I studied a little bit. It's like one of those. And it's like I was tired, man, but I was full. Like,
Yeah.
it's like that book Die Empty, right? Like I was tired, but man, I was empty. And as Martin Rooney would say, like my physical gas tank was empty, my emotional gas tank was full.
Yep.
And after, basically it's almost been 20 years for me in the game as far as coaching. I've had a gym for 18 years, two gyms really, if I, count the Slovenia one. And I'm like, I don't know about you, but like I don't ever get tired. When a client goes, hey man, like, dude, like I came here 2 years ago. I never thought I'd get out of back pain. I've lost 50 pounds. Dude, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I just went and golfed and like, dude, I hit it 320 yards. I'm 63 years old. I never in my life thought I could do that. I'm smashing 25-year-olds in golf that play with me. And like, I mean, I get teary eyed, dude. Like
I know.
and I'm like, man, I'm fucking dope. But like, this is what we do, every day with every person, right?
Yeah.
Like you chip away at it. You tell me what industry does that. There's not many. And so I think that's part of it, man. It's like if you can kind of realize that we get to do this, and if you've been doing a thing for years and you're like, I have to do it, you got to do something else, or you got to change your perspective. I think it's one of those two. And for me, I think there's also this ambitious place that I'm going to, and kind of let me explain that, right?
Mhm.
And let me first zoom out to connect the dots here. Is like Viktor Frankl had this term. It's called positive anxiety. If it's in the book Man's Search for Meaning,
Mhm.
every person should read that book multiple times over. And
Absolutely.
in positive anxiety, what it meant is, you know, um, that you always like you remember where you came from and your accomplishments, right? It's really important to look back. People don't do that enough. That was me, by the way. Chasing the horizon.
Mhm.
And
Same.
when you chase the horizon, it's like humans are very much so like that. Like you get to the place you think that's gonna make you happy, a certain amount of money, a certain thing, a car, whatever, right? Like a relationship. And then it's not, you get this explosion of, dopamine, and then it's like, now what? You know, oh, the horizon's moving. It's always moving, right? You'll never have enough type of thing. And so one of the, Dan Sullivan calls it the gap. Viktor Frankl it calls this, I forgot what he called this space, but he talks about positive anxiety. Positive anxiety is like, yeah, man, dude, like hey, I used to weigh 80 pounds more. Now I weigh less. That's awesome. Like, hey, like I remember when I was making, 20 grand a year, and like now I'm making 85 and moving on up. And man, like good job, guy. Right. But then you're like, hey, but that thing right there, I want to accomplish that. Like that thing is
Mhm.
awesome. Like I want to have more and build more. And you live in this space of positive anxiety. And I think that's a great place to be because you have one or the other, right? If you're just like, yeah, I'm the man, right? Like, look at all the stuff I've done, and you don't have any trajectory, any desire to expand. It's like Tony Robbins talks about it all the time. Like the goal of life is growth, expansion, right? It's
Yep.
if you don't have that, you're probably going to be miserable. Now, if you're always just like, you know, getting to the next place and not realizing what you've accomplished and what you have and being grateful for what you have, you're also going to be miserable, right? So I think finding that sweet spot, and I think a lot of it has to do with the self-awareness, and your own emotional intelligence about yourself to figure that out. And by the way, I figured that out with a lot of pain. So let me preface that, to a lot of challenges, a lot of facing the dirt type of situations. And I think more than ever, I still have my struggles, but I'm very clear on like, man, I get to do this and I've done some cool shit and I'm proud of myself, but there's more to do because I'm like, I'm a missionary, not a mercenary. I think there's, in the industry today, there's a lot more mercenaries, mercenaries that are like, I'm going to do things for the dollar. Um,
Mhm.
like, hey, I want to get this brand deal. I want to have a lot of followers. Which, hey, nothing's wrong with that. But the problem is like, what are you in it for? Because I'm not going to sit here and tell you that like money's not great. I think everybody should, get paid what they deserve. Meaning, hey,
For
if you
sure.
help a ton of people and you serve, and you're like getting results for folks and helping a shit ton of folks, man, get paid. Hell yeah. Right.
Mhm.
But if you're in it as a mercenary and just like, I don't really care about, all that other stuff. I just want to get paid. I just want to make money. You're not going to do well in this industry.
So it's so fleeting. Like that,
Absolutely.
there are so many things that you could tease out from what you just said, from, celebrating your wins to recognizing that ultimately, if you are someone who's truly driven and truly passionate, there is always a next level of evolution. Um, I personally define happiness as always having a goal that I'm meaningfully working towards. And if you attach yourself to an outcome, well, there's no guarantee that you're going to hit that outcome. But if I take the steps every day that I think will lead me towards that goal, then to me, I'm happy. Where, the challenge becomes is if you're always doing more and more and more and more and more, that like 1% better every day kind of mentality, it does bring with it a never good enough.
Mm.
And that's where I think being driven by service and recognizing the impact that you have on the world, that is something that can truly motivate you and keep you present, because chasing that horizon always has you living in the future. But we need to live in the present and we need to enjoy every step of the way. And truly, like the smile on your face told me that day, like this guy loves what he does. Um, Maybe for those who don't know what you do, I know you are a gym owner, you are a coach, you are a public speaker, you host a podcast. Like what are the things that light your fire every day?
That's good. I'm gonna keep it bullet pointed and short, but
Yeah, sure.
so I mean, I started as after my basketball career, I got into actually kind of while I was still playing ball, like I got into training people in strength and conditioning, but I've been coaching for close to 20 years now. I started a gym in Slovenia with my brother and one of my best friends. We were kind of like the first coaching gym in the country of its kind. We're still around 18 years later, still going strong. I would say the strongest. We are kind of like the place in the country. We bring out like shit. Like just this month, we had Alex Natera out for 1 day. We have Pat Davidson out for a 2 day. And I think if you ask Pat, literally just texted me and was like, "Dude, that was the best seminar I've ever uh, put on." Because
That's
I
awesome.
mean, we really take care of people, and we've had the who's who at that gym too, presenting. And I'm very hands off. I basically just consult that. We got 500 members there, 14 full-time coaches. I mean, it's
Amazing.
a it's a great place. And then I moved to the US and kind of started from scratch because I at that point in time married my college sweetheart and started LA Fitness, did the big box gym grind and went from to Vision Quest. And then about it's gonna be 15 and a half years since I opened the gym here in Seattle. Um, went from a garage to a bigger space to buying my own building, which is a 12,000 square foot building where the gym is in. There's 7 other tenants. We have smoothie bar, med spa, DEXA Fit business, physical therapy, nail salon.
Holy
Um,
crap.
we're putting in a fire and ice like sauna cold plunge business in there too. So it's so I'm a landlord and a commercial real estate owner, which is work because I was cleaning the damn gutters on the roof yesterday because the it was a lot of rain and we had a little leak. Anyways, but I say that to say to kind of help paint the picture of what I do and in the process of all of that, 11 years ago, people started asking me about like, hey, how did you build your business? You have a really successful business. That led into the consulting world, which is I've had, with my partner Steve Krez, we have a coaching business called Yo Grow Your Gym. Kind of tells you what we do, right? It's
Yep.
just like it came from the Yo MTV Raps, like the logos, like
I
Yo Grow Your
love
Gym.
that.
For anybody that goes back to that day. And so I, that was organic. It was literally like for years people would bug me, and I actually didn't feel confident about consulting, and then I took on a small group of local coaches and gym owners. They did really well, and it made me go like, damn, I'm good at this shit, right? So that kind of evolved and been doing that for 11 years. And in that process, probably about 10 years ago, um, actually, it's an interesting story. I wouldn't get put on stage as much. I said, well, fuck it, I'll build my own stage, and then we put on this event called Changing the Game. And that was literally 10 years ago in Vegas. And I mean, it was definitely a disruptor in the industry because we brought it together people that nobody ever brought together. I mean, it was nuts. Like we had Cressy, Alan Aragon, John Romanello.
Oh,
But then we
wow.
brought in like, I had Kevin Nations, who was one of the top salespeople, one of my mentors. We had Nick. I mean, I could go down the list. It was absurd. People didn't believe it was happening. They thought it was a fake thing because they were like, dude, nobody's ever done this. Which the event was phenomenal. We ate shit. Like I lost a ton of money.
Yeah, I was
Um,
going to ask.
and yeah, like we're talking about close to 6 figures out of my pocket and Krebs's pocket that we lost. We learned a lot, and we were insane enough to do another one. And not only another one, like I got an event. So we did 2 years. I had some partners in that. Then I fully just took it over myself. And now this is going to be my seventh big event in 10 years in October 10 to 12. It's called the Vigor Ground Fitness and Business Summit. I always feel biased talking about stuff. Like I love promoting what I believe in. So whenever I say like, I mean, I legitimately don't know any event that has the presenters and speakers that we have. Like, I mean, this year it's, Joe DeFranco, Jordan Syatt, Vernon Griffith, Dr. Andy Galpin, Joel Jameson, Lee Boyce, Jason Brown, So Healy. I mean, I can just keep going. It's kind of like, whoa,
Nuts.
what the hell? It's a crazy event. And that also became the reason I tell that story is because, we put ourselves on our own stage, cost us a lot, hurt a lot, but it did put us on the map because people were like, dude, that was the most crazy event we've ever seen. And, it built a reputation. So, from there on, like for the last 10 years, I've been speaking, not just obviously at my own events, but a lot like around the world and a lot around the country on the topics which I'm passionate about, which is either training or the business of training. In those I started I was a little weird because I started doing content pretty early,
Yep.
before there was 20 years ago, 18 years ago, I started writing, so I was doing articles on my own pages, on other pages. Then it went from articles to video. I started doing YouTube 15 years ago. You can actually go on my YouTube channel and look back,
Wow.
doing, I mean, obviously the videos were basically just me going like, I Luka, I train hard, watch workout. It's like
Sounds like
and
my
then
early
obviously,
videos.
yeah, and then that evolved obviously to a lot of educational stuff. And I got 335,000 subscribers now on YouTube. So
Unreal.
that's been growing a lot. And same thing, social media. I started podcasting. I completely forgot, but Andy McCloy shared a thing, and he was like, "Oh, I love this podcast, memory from Facebook." And I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, I've been podcasting for 7 years. Um,
Wow.
and so I've been writing a newsletter for 16 years. So it's like the realm, it's like I thankfully I reached out to a lot of mentors. I've had, I mean, every mentor that you can imagine, mastermind. For 17 years I've been investing in that. So whether it was in the marketing world, in the training world, I've done internships left and right. I continue to, we have 10 to 12 different seminar certifications at our gym in Seattle in-house. I mean, it's unheard of. We have the most continuing ed than any gym in the country, I believe. And so I've stood on the shoulders of giants, and that rubbed off on me when, a long time ago, Gary Vee, who I've been fortunate to also know personally and have a meeting with him, and it's like, hey, he's like, dude, you're a media company. Like, if you have to understand that you are a media company.
Hmm.
And that clicked for me. And I, instead of like outsourcing, your media, it was like, no, like now we got, phones and YouTube. And again, back in the day at the Ryan Lee boot camp, 16 years ago, it was like people were talking about YouTube, and, nobody else started doing it. I was just like, I'll just put vote videos on here. It's not going to be like my main thing. I'm just, I
Yeah.
create content, I put it on there. But I think that the superpower has really been consistency.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that I want to talk about because, you know, if people are listening now and going like, okay, you do a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's kind of absurd. I wrote a book that's going to come out in September. I put on events. I speak. I actually have some brand deals, and none of like, I think the important lesson is that many of these things I didn't set out like I'm going to be a
Yep.
YouTuber. Like I don't still don't consider myself a YouTuber, right? Like or like I'm going to get brand sponsorship. That's why I'm starting this, right? I'm a coach. I'm a
Yep.
coach and then I'm an entrepreneur. And at heart, I'm a coach. I mean, I train 25 hours a week. I coach 25 hours a week. I got 55 semi-privates this week. I train pro teams. I train elite NFL guys. I run classes. I run charity events. Like I launched my own program called Athlete for Life on Train Heroic. I have a brand called LukaHocevar.com that has educational workshops and courses for coaches. And it can sound overwhelming, and dude, some days I can tell, like, if I just write it all out, it fucking overwhelms
Oh
me.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, but the reason I share it and the reason that is like that most of these things naturally progress to that. Every fucking day I wake up and I'm like, I want to be the best damn coach and I want to be the best business owner I can be. And I chip away at it. Like I'm studying. Like, if you looked at my tabs right now, it might freak you out if you're one of those, OCD, keep the desktop clean guys. But like I got 3 courses open. It's like, oh, I got 30 minutes. I'm gonna go grab coffee. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna work on this course. I'm gonna take notes.
Yeah.
I have a schedule for shooting videos. I have a schedule for this. I have a schedule for this. I compartmentalize days to work on different things, and I think that's a skill set, when you said like being
Yes.
present is important. Being present and focused is a fucking superpower. It's
Yep.
like a elite superpower, to be able to like, I'll do this podcast. And then after that, I got a call that's like working on strategy for Yoga Gym. Then I got, a couple of NFL guys. Then I jump on, basically a Coach Catalyst online event that I'm
Yep.
doing. Then I get an hour training session, and I train 2 super high level high school prospects. Then I'm going to record another Q&A podcast. Then, it's like I have to just do the thing, be there, right? And then I have
Yep.
to cut that shit off and then go and change and have an alter ego and be somebody else,
I'm
and
going to stop you there because you don't have to be somebody else. Everything that you do, that everything that you just said is just you being you. And that's,
correct. That's a
man,
good
that's
correction.
so, it's so, so, so powerful of a message that you show up as yourself in everything that you do, driven by passion, driven by service. And you do that every single day. And like when I'm listening to you talk and listening to all the things that you do, I'm like, all this is a flow chart, starting with a guy who's super passionate about coaching people and who's just capitalized on opportunities to continue to impact the world. And when you
It
do
really, I
that,
mean, it really is, man. Like I, I tell coaches, man, we can dive in a lot of different stuff because there's
yeah,
stuff that I see that frustrates me. But you know, like we have that, you can't ignore, for example, things like podcasts or media or anything like that. But you can control how you show up to it. You can control how what it means to you and what you do with it. Where I was just speaking at Mike Bowl seminars, keynoting that, and Mike was like, "Hey, I want you to do that content talk." And I have a presentation. It's content that educates positions and sales, right? And I think that, the word sales and all that stuff is sometimes scary for coaches. And
Right.
my whole presentation is like, look, man, like when I started doing content, and I still to this day, what is my frame of when I do stuff? I'm like, I'm going to create something useful and valuable. It's either going to educate, entertain, or inspire. And mostly it's education and entertainment combined, in some format, right? And so now all it is for me is like I think skin to skin, face to face, nothing touches it in training. You
100%.
know what I mean? And I do online stuff, but like the reason why people are like, dude, why are you fucking coaching 25 hours a week right now? You're nuts. Like, I'm like, wow, like, dude, I don't have to. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
I love that in person. I think it's where you change the most, right? And so online, all I try to do is share my experiences of the things that I do, like not the things that I fucking heard, but the things that I do, and share them with the world. So somebody's watching it. I mean, it could be something like, I fucking had a really bad back injury 14, 15 years ago. It's like, hey, here's these drills that I do every morning, mobility drills that like really help my back. Okay, cool. Somebody there goes like, dude, oh shit, I tried that and it helped my back too. Fuck yes, that's the goal, right?
Yep.
Or I'm gonna put something up there for the coach and be like, hey, here's my 20 lessons from coaching for 20 years. I like here's literally like these principles. And then, and people are like, dude, that was really helpful for me. Or I put a 30, 45-minute YouTube video up, like, here's program design for beginners. And somebody's like, dude, you should be selling this. I'm like, nah, fuck it. Here you go for free.
Give it for
Right.
free. Yep.
And give your best stuff for free. Frank Kern taught me that. He said, dude, give your best stuff for free. And I'll actually even tell you the reason why to give your best stuff for free, right? Is because three things happen. Number one, when you give your best stuff for free, like you're going to feel good about it, right?
Sure.
Number two, people that watch it are going to be like, damn, this person's very confident and certain. I mean, dude, they're giving like all this shit for free. And
Hmm.
then number three is that most people won't be able to do the stuff you give them. And then who are they going to reach out to?
You.
You, because you taught them the stuff, right? So, so that's that's my like my pitch for like why you should be giving your best stuff for free. But going back to like, that's all. Like, if you just come from a frame, whatever platform you want to go on, it just so happens that I'm a psychopath and I just decided to go on like so many of them. Is you know is this idea that like you get to use your knowledge and experience and wisdom and share it with the world. So when you go to sleep, 500 people or 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 people watch your reel, or 500 people download your podcast, and like now I am basically affecting all those people in this positive way while I'm sleeping, and while I'm my experience and knowledge can now be spread with the world because of these mediums. And if I look at social media and any of these platforms that way, it's a positive way, right? But if I'm on there arguing with people and dividing and doing dumb shit, or, you know, I want to go viral, so I'm going to talk shit about this other person. It's like,
Yep.
that's just not my way of going about things. And it makes me feel good about the stuff that I do, right?
I've never met a person, a client or a potential client who's been like, I really want to work with that person because they talk shit about other people. And that
Right?
it's something that I've always like I've worked with a number of social media companies. I work with a YouTube editor right now who's fucking awesome. But he was like, "Hey, how do you feel about doing reaction videos?" I'm like, "I won't do them.
Mm.
I won't do them because I have unless it's a reaction to say like, hey, these are some good ideas and blah blah blah. I'm not speaking negatively about anyone because negativity only begets negativity. And everything you just said for the last few minutes is all about putting positivity out into the world. And when you put positivity out into the world, it always comes back to you. As you were talking, all I kept thinking was like, oh yeah, this guy's totally an overnight success 20 years down the line.
Happened real quick.
Happened
Let
real
me give you some
quick.
tips. And I mean, but
Daily.
that's the thing though. Like I think that this is we've lost, I think, or should I say we're losing um the apprenticeship model, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm a big fan of studying history, and I'm like I'm a voracious reader, man. I read like crazy. And you look back, the book The Talent Code, for example, and where you hear about the Renaissance, and you hear about like Florence, which is not far from where I grew up. Florence is not that far of a drive from Ljubljana, and I've been to Florence a number of times because it's this magical city. But in a Renaissance, you had in a short time, like less than a century, you had some of the most famous artists and creators come out of that space. Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Dante Alighieri. I mean, go down the list, look it up. It's insane, right?
Mhm.
People that we know 1,000+ years later, or almost 1,000 years later, whatever it may be. But it's like, how? How did that happen? Well, because in that period, the way that things worked was like that you worked under a master for 10 years. And at 10 years, it'd be like, okay, now go into the world, like, and do your thing. Um, and maybe, I'm not necessarily like you need 10 years. Even though if anybody watched the documentary, Jiro Dreams of Sushi, which is excellent, the best sushi guy on the planet. Like, when you intern for Jiro, like he allows you to make the rice after 2 years. And then these guys, once he lets them make the rice, they're crying because they're so happy about it. Now I'm not saying that like, you'll intern at Vigor and after 2 years, I'll let you,
Coach a
teach you
client.
deadlift or something like that, like,
Yeah.
but, and you'll cry. But this idea, like really the apprenticeship model was like, you were around the best of the best. And it was hard, man. The standards that they kept you to, because they didn't want to let you go out in the world and be like, hey, you like worked under me and now you're going out there with
Yeah.
this shit, product. And they would put so many tens of thousands of hours in before, they did their own thing. And now it's like, oh man, I went through this course. I went on like I did my exercise science degree, maybe like, man, pay me the money, let me blow up and let's go. And it's like the standards are low. There's no I talk to so many people now and I'm like, hey man, where have you entered? Are you interning somewhere? Like you investing in some mentorship? Where you going like hands-on training? Oh man, like I don't have to do that. I mean, I do some online courses and stuff. Like, oh my God, dude, like that's
It's a
insane.
travesty. It's a
It is. Like,
travesty.
it's nuts. And
I grew up in the same, like, how old are you?
I'm turning 43 next month.
Okay, so I'm 7 years younger than you, but I still grew up in that same model. Like when I graduated my undergrad, I said, I want to be a collegiate strength coach. I looked online, I went, who was the number one collegiate strength coach in 2009? It was Ron McKeefery at South Florida. So I
He was
emailed
just at
Ron.
he was just at UW.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Dude, he's done some crazy shit since then. So I messaged him and I sent him an email. I said, Ron, I want to come work for you. What do I have to do? He hooked me up with Frank Wintrick. Frank was like, come on down. You can be part of our internship class, 14 people. It was like 40, 50 hours a week. Half of that was sweeping and mopping their 12,000 square foot weight room. And I got an opportunity to work with football and I worked for free. Then I did my first master's degree working for free, got a job as an assistant, as a grad assistant, did another master's degree, then I got my first full-time job, then I got my first real job. That's 5 years, that's like 4 years of working for free, essentially. And I wouldn't have traded it for the world because it set.
because oh man, because what you learned there, that's the learning over earning model, right? Like you came out of that at a level and in a standard so high that like, I mean, you're crushing people. And what I mean by that is like, look, the feedback loop when you're working with folks like that, right? You're
Mhm.
watching decades of experience and results and wisdom and knowledge, and you're there all the time. So it's like when you don't do something well, it gets corrected. And then the feedback loop is now you do it better right away. And
Mhm.
consistently you have these faster and faster feedback loops from great coaches. And so you know what greatness is, you know what it takes, right? And that to this day, people will say, dude, you got a crazy busy schedule, this, that, and the other. And like I show up at events where I'm, keynoting and I watch the workouts and I do this stuff with I'm like, man, like you guys do this awesome. Like, can I jump in a workout? Can I watch? Can I, you know, I'm still like, how can I get these fast feedback loops for people that are doing stuff great? When I got this building, the commercial building that I bought, I didn't understand. I mean, I did on paper, I studied it and stuff, but I didn't understand a lot about what happens, or especially construction. And
Mm.
so one of my friends, she's an absolute savage at this, right? Like, and I would spend, I can't tell you how much time. I mean, that year I went to 117 meetings between architects, construction, the city, my accountants, with Rocal, like asking questions. They were like, dude, we've never seen anybody be at this much stuff. It's kind of annoying because I asked a million questions, right? But it was like, this is my feedback loop. And
Yep.
I have a couple of people with me that are great at this. So you can't bullshit me. And I'm just learning and learning and learning and learning. And guess what? It's like now, man, I can consult you on commercial real estate shit. Like, I wouldn't say I'm the world's best expert, but man, like I know a lot because I have a great network and I was really in the trenches, doing this. So I was interning, right?
Yep.
I was asking people, and I would to this day, I'm telling you right now, like if I had some phenomenal person in, whatever space that I want to improve in, go like, hey, listen, man, 20 hours a week for free, you're going to work for me, right? I'd be like, man, can I? I've got folks that come in and go like, how much do I pay for the internship? I'm
Yeah.
like, you get paid with knowledge and experience. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
that's, like if I'm at my level, I'm willing to do it for free to learn from somebody that's phenomenal at it. Like that should teach you something, right? Because the thing is, nobody can take that away from you, right?
No.
Like one of my presentations is filling these buckets, and like bucket 1 and 2, the most important buckets are knowledge and skills. Those nobody can take away from you.
Hmm.
Right. And people are skipping these buckets to try to get the, status and resources, which is like how much I make and how am I known. But I'm like, long term, you can't have that if you haven't filled the bucket of knowledge, skills, and people.
You can't keep it. You can't keep it.
Correct.
That's something I think is a big gap in a lot of people's mindset around business is I'm not going to say making money is easy, but it is kind of easy. If you have an idea or you have a product or you have a service that's in demand, it's pretty easy to sell it. But how do you continue to sell it? How do you continue to sustain that revenue month over month, year over year to a point where you build wealth and you're able to retire? It's one thing that I speak about. It's funny you mentioned the consulting because my mentorship program came about the exact same way. It's like I've been coaching for 10 years, I think 12 or 13 years at the time. Had a number of coaches come through, either work under me as like a client and then become coaches on their own. They're like, hey, can you help me build my business? Can you help me build my business? I'm like, maybe I should make this a product. So I started. Um, and that's one of the main things I focus on is like, how do we build you a model that scales and sustains? What, like you seem to have, there's a few different strategies here, and I want to let you speak on it, but you build a vertical to a point where it operates on its own with a smaller amount of maintenance energy. Then you jump into a new vertical. How have you kind of structured your diversity in income verticals?
Okay. First, I feel like I need to share an analogy. Okay.
Please.
Because
I
the
love
analogy I think is
analogies.
going to be helpful. So, starting a business, getting a business to be successful is exceptionally difficult, right? It's like a Ferris wheel, like where it's so heavy when you want to try to move it, it doesn't budge, right? And you keep pushing and you push and you push and you push. And I'm like, it's like, holy shit, this is so hard, right? And then one day it starts moving just a little bit, and it gives you that like that motivational feeling. And then as we push it, what happens when the wheel gets momentum? It's actually easier to push,
Hmm.
right? And so once you get that thing spinning, it's like if you stop spinning it, it will stop, but it takes way less effort. You spin it and it keeps going. You spin it a little bit, it keeps going. Your effort is less. Okay. Now, my analogy for that is because then you can start pushing another Ferris wheel,
Yep.
right? And I'll tell you what, if from the get-go you start trying to push a lot of Ferris wheels, you don't move any of them.
Yes.
That's my analogy for what's happening a lot today, where somebody's like, I'm going to train people a little bit here, I'm going to do a little bit of this, I'm going to do a little bit of that, and then like you're not pushing anything, right? My first 10 years, all I'm doing is like I'm going to be the best trainer in the city, and I'm going to fucking build the best gym, right? And I was obsessed with that, obsessed, right? And the opportunity of consulting was like, oh, hold up, this wheel's spinning. Now I can start pushing this other wheel. And this other wheel is actually a smaller wheel, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's a little bit easier to start getting moving because to me, I kind of already had some momentum because there was a reputation and a status, right? And I believe that if you have authority and reputation and status, the wheel is easier to start spinning. And I'll give another, like very extreme analogy, but like Kim Kardashian goes, I have this new product, this line called Skins. Guess what? Shit's gonna take off. Mr. Beast has a chocolate bar, crushes it, right? Because he has a brand and a reputation and authority. So, that first wheel is the biggest and hardest to usually start getting to spin. And then again, the easier it is to kind of keep spinning. And to keep it spinning smoothly, you need people, right? People on the bus.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm here to tell, like, we could probably do a whole episode where I'm like, tell
On
me your fuck
people.
ups, and we'll just talk about hours of like my fuck ups. So, don't get it twisted. Like, I plenty of that, because I've made mistakes where I've, let the wheel stop spinning, and then it was
Mhm.
really hard to get it spinning again. So just be clear, nothing is passive. There's no such thing as passive income other than,
Thank you.
you know, it doesn't exist. Look, stock dividends, stuff like that. I mean, but most of it is like, it really is work. It's work, which is why I believe that you should, passionate and meaningful, purposeful about the stuff that you do. So that analogy, I share it because I can go over and say, okay, cool. There was my training and then the gym and then the consulting, right? And then the next revenue stream, really, like, I would say the bigger one for me, there was pockets of stuff. We'd launch things, and I get paid and blah blah blah. But like, we're talking like actual recurring revenue.
Yeah.
Was last January I started the Luka Hocevar brand, which is basically education for coaches, right? So I launched a course. It was called Small Group Mastery. It did really well. It's still doing pretty damn good. That was like also an aha moment for me, because it was like, whoa, like, this is a very, like, I love doing this. I really enjoyed the education piece because I was doing it already. I was educating online for
Yeah.
free. And now it's like, hey, let me organize it, make it even better, and sell it. So that became another revenue stream, right? That we're also going to turn into continuity. I think that most things you should turn to continuity, right? So you have predictable and sustainable. Like, I know what's coming in. And obviously, look, we kind of know what's coming in through some advertising. Like, when we push advertising, I know what my ROI is. We spend this much to make this much, right?
Mhm.
And we could dive into that as well. But that was another revenue stream. Then, people started going like, hey, I love your training, because they see the training, because I'm posting this shit about all the time, right? I want to buy your program. And I'm like, I don't have any fucking programs. So
Mhm.
year 18, in December, I launched my first, like, here's an 8-week program called, my mentality is athlete for life. So that's what the brand has become. Like, that's how I program design. It's like, hey, look, feel, perform like athlete without the nagging aches and pains, pretty much, right? That's the tagline, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put out this PDF 8-week program, really thorough warm-ups, nutrition, training, 8 weeks, links to videos, see how it does. Did very well. And that was like a signal for me, like, okay, people really want this, right? It's one thing for people to hit you up, and then it's another thing for people to buy, right?
Mhm.
And and then from there, it was like, people are loving the program. Hey, what's next? I turned that 3 weeks ago into, an ongoing program called Team Athlete for Life on Train Heroic. We're approaching like 300 people in that. So that's become a revenue stream,
Oh
and
yeah.
so, but all of these, by the way, so let's zoom out a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And consulting started by like people seeing a thing that I did, going like, I want that. I have a problem. You've solved the problem already. Can you help me solve my problem? Yes. Stream of income, right? And then as I do it, I become better at it. I figure out models. I figure out what's working, what's not. I fuck things up. I learn from them. I make them better, right?
Mhm.
Education. I was doing a lot of YouTube stuff, my own podcast. I've been on hundreds of other podcasts. People are like, dude, like, the shit you're talking about is fucking great. Like, I want more of it. Can you teach me the small group model? Can you teach me this? Okay. Most people hit me up about small group. I said, I'll launch this course and I'll make it really fucking in depth. And I'll give people a year worth of my programming, plus an ebook, plus, 11 hours of video, right? People loved it. We
Mhm.
want more. So, you know what I mean? So same thing with the training stuff. Hormozy said something that really stuck with me, and on the content side, and like how you figure out if people, what they want from you is give, fucking keep giving
Yep.
until people ask you for something, right? Like, now people are trying to make artificial demand,
Yes.
right? And it's like, oh, I'm gonna fucking make this program. It's like, dude, do people want the stuff? And it's like, for me, the program, it wasn't like one person messaged me. Like, over the years, it was hundreds of people that
Yeah.
messaged me and said, I want to buy something from you. And I'm like, I don't have anything.
I don't have
Like,
anything to sell.
I have nothing to sell you. Dot dot dot. Yet. Let me figure this shit out, right? So it's where now it's like, you don't have a reputation, you don't have a brand, you haven't created value in the marketplace. I call that relational equity, right? So relational equity is like that example I gave you earlier, where like, I put up a video of like, here's the mobility drills I do every morning. And man, it makes my hips and low back feel amazing, right? A person, Joe in fucking the Netherlands, right, watches it and goes like, my God, that guy Luka really made my back feel better. I'm gonna follow him, right? Relational equity. Then I give him some more stuff. And he keeps like over the years, he's like, oh, he's got a podcast. Let me listen to the podcast. Oh, he's got a newsletter. Let me read that. And so I'm constantly giving into that relational bucket, right? Value. And they're like, dude, this person's created so much value in my life. Oh, he's got a product. Fuck it. Like they're buying instantly.
100%.
Because I love their stuff. And this is just an organized way to achieve another goal. Plus, I really trust this person, right? So today you got like people don't focus on relational equity. It's almost like, hey, what can I create to get buys? And that's a problem. You don't even have a signal. Like to me, the signal is like, oh wow, 500 people have at least, messaged me in the last whatever amount of months that they want to buy something from me. And then I'm like, okay, let me create something and let me see if that's real.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh shit. 700 people bought this fucking ebook. Okay. That's a lot of people for a product like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a market, right? And and to me, it's like content also, like to me, it does two different things, right? One, it makes me feel great. It makes me serve. It makes me like the thing that I'm good at in real life. I'm just sharing it with as many people as possible to solve their problems, like problems just like the problems of my clients, whether that's in business or in training, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then those people give you feedback whether that's what they want, right? Like I look at the stuff and go like, holy shit, this thing has 5 times more saves and engagement and people commenting and people hit me up. They're telling you more of what they want, right?
Immediate market research. And I think people miss the boat on that. Like we have at our disposal, all of us have social media accounts. It's the perfect way to test ideas. It's the perfect way to test products. It's the perfect way to know what your audience actually wants from you.
Absolutely. And the thing is like it can be very unstressful, right? Like one of my really good friends is Dr. John Berardi, who obviously is like, I say one of the most successful people as far as
Does pretty
building
okay.
yeah, he's decent at doing something pretty cool, right? But one of the things he said to me, like, I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time with him and his family, and just we late nights talking about life and business and everything, right? And I remember we were talking about this, like, how do you approach like creation of anything? A show, an episode of writing a book, this, that, the other. And he was like, man, I just have one metric. I think there's one metric you should be the most worried about. And it's like, am I proud of this work? That's it.
That's so
Like
simple and so profound.
that's it. And it's like, you know what? If I'm proud of this work and it got very little likes and comments, fuck it. I'm gonna keep making work I'm proud of every day, putting it out there. And I guarantee you, if you do that, something's gonna pick up sooner or later. Period.
Unless
And
you're
you'll
like
be
a raging narcissist.
yeah, can't solve that problem for you. That's well, but this is the issue though, right? The issue is that if let's say you have some weird shit that goes viral, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, like making fun of somebody at the gym, right? And it's like that gets 3 million views, and then you start going like, damn, like I got to start making fun of people and like filming people and sharing people, being made fun of, and that's gonna give me more views. But I'm like, but what do you want? Like, one, is that what you do? Is that what you want to be known for? What problem are you solving? Other people, other making other people laugh at other people. I don't know. I don't want to be known for that. So that's not what I do. Like I fucking
Mhm.
coach to help people change their life. Like that's what I do. So now you're having, if that becomes the metric, now you start getting fueled by the wrong thing. And then like a year later, it's like, wow, I got 1 million followers. But like, yeah, what's your business? Like, what are you selling? You can't sell that. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that like we're talking about stuff that's maybe deeper, but how do how can you be successful for a long time? Well, you got to be passionate and stay with it for a long time. And I
Yeah.
always like, I reread Sun Tzu Art of War
Great
pretty
book.
often, and sometimes people are like, dude, why do you read that a lot? I'm like, you know, motherfuckers test me a lot, so I got to keep reading that book. But
Go to war every
it
day with
says,
myself, bro.
oh hell yeah, hell yeah. And but I love one of the lessons there is like, that I'm gonna endure long enough to see the bodies of my enemies like floating down the river past me. And all that means is that, like, in life, I mean, I did stuff for so long before anybody ever noticed. I probably wrote articles for 3 years before, you know, Smitty was like, "Oh, you want to write something for Diesel Crew?" Nate Green was like, "Dude, you want to, like, I like your stuff." But it was like 3 years, every time, like every week, every 2 weeks, and I'm working 100-hour weeks, 80-100-hour weeks, right? Still writing blog posts late at night. Like, if you can't endure that, like, you're not gonna see anything. Before my YouTube popped off, I mean, it was like a decade plus, right? Like, I had to keep going, and I could keep going on, like, with different examples and lessons of this stuff where it took a long time. So my point is, like, this idea of, like, am I creating work I'm proud of? It's a win. If that's your metric, it's a
Yeah.
win. And I can tick the box and I can build, stack my wins and build success and make me keep, like, get that intrinsic motivation that keeps me going.
The the thing that I was like kind of nodding my head to is this notion that, you use the word endure. I think endure brings with it a connotation of suffering,
Mm.
but I don't think at any point you suffered because the endurance was just doing things you love doing. So it's just, well, if I'm proud of it and I love doing it, I'm just going to keep doing it because it's fun for me.
And it can be hard and fun. Like,
Yeah.
let me tell you,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like, let me tell you some of that. Like, when I look back in my basketball career, some of the most memorable moments was, and I'm gonna make a distinction between struggle and suffer, right? Okay, because it's a very important distinction.
Perfect.
And it's the struggles that I had with my teammates. It bonded me. And by the way, like, when it's happening, it's suffering, right? So it can be
Mhm.
suffering during, right? And we're struggling through this thing together. It bonds us. It's like there's a saying, and it says, you know, um, happiness shared is happiness multiplied, and pain shared is pain divided, right? And
Ooh, I
I
like
tell
that.
that to our clients. And I'm like, unfortunately, negativity is easier to sell. It
Mhm.
really is. We live in a world where it's like, being a victim and negative, it attracts. It's like it's easier than positivity, right? But I do believe, like, when you share positivity, it's multiplied. When you share struggle, it's divided. I mean, think about, like, and I won't say names, but, like, I've been, there's a lot of death lately in my life, and
Mhm.
people that I've been able to sit with and cry and, like, mourn for hours because of their loss. But that pain, where afterwards they would say, like, thank you, like, that helped me divide that pain, right? And so, to come back to, struggle and suffering, like, I would even argue, the satisfaction of any achievement is so much greater if there's struggle. I mean, look, go on an incredibly difficult hike, right? And as you're going through the hike, like, it's hard, but man, the journey is meaningful. And then you get to the top, and dude, there's a feeling, like, why, I'm a big hiker, I'm a big person in the mountains, right? I'll go there. There's times I'll sit there and just watch for 3 hours, just take it in. It's almost like, um, I mean, it's almost like I'm on drugs in a positive way, right? Okay, now take a gondola up there. How'd you
Oh,
feel?
not the same.
Fuck, it's not the same. And that's life, and so that's the thing, is struggle can be good. It can be, maybe sometimes the word is not fun, but it's certainly meaningful, right? And this idea of, like, the journey.
Mhm.
So, but the distinction is that, like, suffering is happening while the pain is happening. It's there, right? So, but afterwards, if something, put it this way, uh, if something, like, years later, you're still suffering with that, but it's already happened. You see what I'm saying? To me, that's like, you're suffering, but you're not letting go of it. So there's a big distinction between that, right? Like, and a lot of people are like, man, I think that happened to me 2 years ago. I was like, oh, you're still suffering from that. That's not healthy, right? Things will happen. Like, people will, you're in a relationship, clients leave, the economy goes to shit, your business flunks, you get injured. Those are, like, you can, in that moment, struggle and suffer with that because it's acute. It's happening right there. Understandable. But I think the people that have the biggest challenges also with depression and anxiety is that they're suffering from events that happened a while ago and they can't let them go. right? And the reason I talk about this because I fucked up a lot of stuff in my life, and I went to therapy, I went to different programs that changed my life, and it's very very hard for me for a person that was born in 81 in Yugoslavia, socialism, before the war in 91 that we had, and for a man, from that era, from that time, from that place in the Balkans to go, I remember the day that I picked up the phone and was crying. I was like, I need help,
Hmm.
and that was probably one of the biggest breakthroughs in my life. And guess what? I was suffering, you know what I mean, from things that had happened, and I had shame around, and I think guilt can be healthy. Shame is not healthy, because guilt is like, this is what I did. Shame is like, this is who I am. And I was in
Ooh,
a
I like that
place
distinction. Yeah,
where I was like, this is who I am, like a bad person, but I wasn't. I did some bad things, and like, which by the way, some great resources here. Debbie Ford's book, Dark Side of the Light Chasers, and Why Good People Do Bad Things. Two phenomenal books. And that was, I think that this is an important part. Like, I know this is philosophical, right? But
I love
if
it.
we change our perspective about struggle and hard, just changing the perspective about that can change your life. It can.
Hmm.
So to me, like when I get up and like, dude, on from Tuesday to Thursday, like I used to be the guy, for 10 years, Sunday through Friday, I slept 3.5 hours per night. I'm not saying you should. That was fucking, dumb, but it was like, it's all I knew. I was like, well, fuck it. Just going to work more, and I'm going to succeed because this is what I got to do.
Hmm.
I sleep a good amount now, but like on Tuesday to Wednesday, I'm like, oh, I only got 4 hours. It's going to be a long day. But I could be the person that's like, oh, man, like why? And by the way, there's been a bunch of shit that's happened at the gym that I've had to deal with, struggles, challenges. But like I can get up and I can be like, oh my God, this is, suffering through this day and everything's, or I can go like, what, it's gonna be a hard day, but man, I'm gonna fucking do work I'm proud of. Like this next group session I'm gonna train. I'm gonna be proud of this fucking group
You
session.
crush it.
Then after, yep, you know what I mean? And then it's like I'm after that session, like I'm proud of that session. When next session, if now it fires me up for the next one,
Hmm.
right? And now I keep building momentum. And at the end of the day, I am fucking tired. But I'm like, man, I crushed that day. Can't wait till tomorrow. You know what I mean? And it
I,
sounds corny, but it's not.
dude, it's not corny at all. And a lot of that resonates with me and kind of the journey that I've been through. And one thing that I point to now, uh, that I didn't have before, I call them lighthouses. So there are certain
Yeah.
lighthouses in my life that I know are there. They're sturdy, they're strong, and they keep me from running into the rocks. And I think, I want to be mindful of your time because I do have some stupid questions to ask you before we finish. Um, what are some of the lighthouses or the lighthouse in your life that you can always rely on to keep you away from those danger zones now?
Ooh, good question. Good question. Um, I mean, look, there's people, I've been very grateful and fortunate to have, I mean, I put in the work for those people to be in my life. So I
Mm,
don't want to be like it was accidental, but nonetheless, I'm very grateful and fortunate to have those people in my life that are people that, I'm proud to be friends with and are aspirational to me in some way.
mm,
So I think about that and I go like, I think, listen, I think it's very like we are creatures of tribes, right? Of societal standards, right? And like my community is people that like I hope that look up to me in some way and I look up to them in some way. And I don't want my tribe to be like, who has Luka become? Right? I think one of the most powerful questions in your life is like, who do I want to become? It's the question that changed my life, right? And it's the question I found out when I was going through therapy in the Wake Up Warrior program. And is, I also with when my father, my parents, I was a knucklehead kid. I was an organized crime from age 14 pretty much to in some ways 23, but at 18 is why I went to America to play college ball. It was actually to get away from that. And having the awareness to go like if I don't, nothing good's gonna happen and life's gonna go to shit. And my parents were not, my parents were not responsible for. I'm not like because my dad from age 11 wasn't around because he lived in England and we went back to Slovenia after the war and blah blah blah. He did the best that he could to for our family, right? But I found myself in environments that influenced me in negative ways. And at the end of the day, it's my responsibility, right? Now, I look back and I go like, I want, my parents to be proud of who I've become through that, like, because there was a
Hmm.
period of time where I know like it was like, oh shit, this is not going to turn out good. And then I think about, again, like the people that I love and respect to look at me and go like, man, I'm proud for Luka to be my brother, my person, my like, right. And my girlfriend, who, is more than my girlfriend now, I guess. It's like we're working to building a family and whatnot. Like I want her to be like, I'm proud to be with this guy,
Yeah.
and I think that this idea, we are reflections of our people, our communities. And while, yes, absolutely, should you be proud of yourself? Absolutely, right? But to say you shouldn't give a fuck what people think, bullshit. That's such a
Oh
like,
shit.
you
Yeah.
know, we are not, it's like Arnold said, we are not self-made men. You know what I mean? Like we're all like chiseled by our environments, and hopefully like we choose our environments because we shape our environments and our environments shape us, and our environments are the people around us, right? And so I would, when you say that, that's makes my heart happy, is like when you, hey, there's so many people that have said stuff about you and speak highly of you,
Hmm.
and but now for me, what's important is that the people that I care about the most
Yes.
speak highly of me, right? And I want to continue to become a better man, better leader, better son, brother, boss, and hopefully, also husband again, because I fucked that up like when I was younger. And I mean it taught me a lot of lessons. The pain taught me the most lessons, but that's the question. Like, who do I want to become? And by the way, it's very easy to get pulled off track. And that's why it's important to have a compass. To me, who I want to become is the compass. And if anybody's ever done like any tracking in the woods and stuff like that, like, and you have a compass, one thing, the compass doesn't just fucking have like a very straight needle. It shakes like this, right? It's
Hmm.
fucking going left and right. And that's how life is. Like you're gonna kind of get off track and shit happens and you're not perfect, you're human, you fuck up. But the thing is, but if I know where that needle is eventually pointing, I can get off track and move back. You know what I'm saying? So, and what is that needle? True north or whatever the people call it, right? It's like, well, it's your values. It's the question of who do you want to become,
Hmm.
right? It's the question of what matters, and it's the question of I think it's the distinction between status values versus eulogy values. And
Hmm.
look, I've been the guy, like status values. How much do I make? Who knows me? You know what I'm saying? Like, how many followers do I have? Eulogy values is like honor, pride, character, work ethic, curiosity. Like, hey, and again, I, in essence, I think eulogy values should be, again, your North Star. But I'm also not the person that's like, you shouldn't care about how much money you make. Like, dude, yeah, I want to make good money so I can take care of my family. I gotta,
Hmm.
what? Like, I gotta, my parents are, both have Parkinson's. Like, I gotta not in many ways take care of a lot of people. I have responsibilities to people that are employed by me. I have multiple companies. Like, fuck yeah, like it's bullshit to just be in the ether and it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it does,
It
because
does.
financial security, guess what? You'll definitely be happier. It's certainly not the foundation of success, but it is a part of it. Like, I know how it was when I was like, holy shit, do I get to pay this bill? Holy fuck. It's like, am I going to be able to pay rent for the gym? Like, oh my God, I can't pay for insurance. Oh, well, hopefully fucking nothing bad happens to me. Right. Like, and then when you get people that you're taking care of, right, there's responsibility. So there's, you know, you should want to be financially stable, right? You should want to, like, hey, I want to have this nice house, these nicer things. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, it's good if you're making that money, I think, from something positive that affects people, right?
Yeah.
But if you lose the reason I'm coming back to this kind of like North Star and compass is because I've done that and not followed, those eulogy values, right? And I went off path and I was making good money, but I was an idiot. You know what I mean? I did idiotic things. And so, and you'll burn your life to the ground because I did that, because you don't like who you are. So you
Mhm.
fuck things up and then you have to rebuild. And you find yourself in the rebuild, right? But what you don't want to do is get stuck in this proverbial cul-de-sac. You build something, you burn it down. You build something, you burn it down. And I consult a lot of people now that are like, they're like, Luka, like, I'm great at building stuff, but then I always fuck it up. And then we have to dive deeper into why that is.
Yeah, man, there's so many parallels that our journeys have followed. And the reason I brought up the lighthouse is because I feel like anyone who is happy and is driven has a lighthouse in their life or multiple lighthouses, and they usually are people. They have very strong understanding of their core values. Like I know for like I'm always driven by am I aligned with my core values? And then when I open the door to my office and I walk out of my office and I look at my wife, like, did I make her proud? Did I act in a way that is going to make her proud that I am her husband and that I'm doing right by her through our work together? And I'm super lucky, like so fortunate to have my wife as the co-owner of our coaching business, and she's a phenomenal coach in her own right. Um, but she's also somebody that I want to provide for, and I want to create a safe and sustainable and honestly like comfortable life for us. And that I always look at income. Income is driven by impact. And if you chase income without impact, the income is fleeting and you're going to burn it down.
Yep.
So you're someone definitely like impact driven all the way. And dude, I really appreciate the perspective that you've given. I do have some really stupid questions to ask. Funny enough,
By all means.
I also played basketball I was not 250 pounds when I played basketball. Um, so I don't play basketball anymore. Um, but it's funny whenever I meet anyone who used to hoop, I'm like, they always have a swagger to them. And honestly, there's a specific swagger to Baltic basketball players that I've met. Like one of my best friends, Nemanja, he's like to it.
Yeah, Dima, yeah.
He's a
Bosnian.
he's a medical doctor. He's an actor. He's like, and he's a hooper at heart. So the
Amazing.
first silly question I have for you is: you're going out on the blacktop, you plus four. Who's your starting five? Street ball.
Street ball.
Yeah,
Ooh,
street ball. So you need some bangers.
dude, this is like, I would literally have to like sit down for 2 hours. So whatever I say, I'd probably change the answer to this in 2 hours. Okay. But uh I mean, look, I'm gonna pull from this area. It's gonna be a weird mix, right?
Okay.
I'm currently, because I'm such a Balkan guy, like I personally look, there's gonna be one or two players that win the MVP this year, and they're both from Balkans, right? So it's Luka
Hmm.
Doncic and Jokic. I would bring both of them on the
Okay.
blacktop. Here's why: because they have, like, so I grew up with Luka's dad, right? Like I mean, grew up with him. Like I played in Slovan when Luka was like three
Oh,
years
very
old, so
cool.
which is pretty cool. And like they're crafty, they're unguardable, they're like awkward. And I say awkward in the best of ways. Like you can't fucking do anything with them. They'd actually be good at street ball. You know what I mean? Then I mean I would have to have Michael Jordan. Well, I look, I'm the thing is I'm gonna be biased because I grew up in an era where I'd wake up 3:30 in the morning, because the Bulls were playing, and that was basically East Coast time. Like, that the games were basically 3:30 morning in Slovenia, and there would be channels that televised, and I'd get up and like that was my, I still think he's the GOAT. Um, and then look, a big influence on me, and you might look at this and go like, hold up, are you building this team from a standpoint of if I'm going just off of like people I really look up to,
Mm,
Allen Iverson for me was like, okay, this
I had
guy
that in my
can do
starting
shit.
five too.
Man, I mean, he's a street baller too.
Oh yeah.
Um, now you got, I mean, I'm putting probably myself, AI at the one, myself at the two, because I can shoot lights out
Hmm.
in my prime. And then you're gonna go, it's gonna be weird because Jordan will be at the three.
Yeah.
Luka can do whatever because he can play the post at the four. I mean, four and spread the floor, and you got like Jokic at the five. Again, I could have an argument for probably 10 different lineups. I'm completely going from, I would say, the people that I really love watching play and were kind of like my childhood heroes as basketball players versus, again, I'm a Balkan guy. Like I'm gonna pick my people. So that's why Luka and Jokic in there, and they are the two, top best
Mhm.
players and top three in the world right now. So
So I had AI, Jordan, KG, and Shaq. Young Shaq though, when he could still run.
young Shaq. Yes, I mean it's hard. That's the thing is it's hard to go against. Shaq was so dominant.
So
It's
dominant.
very interesting watching the analysis of people today, like, oh man, Shaq would like not be able to play in this NBA. I'm like, dude, Shaq, Shaq had to be triple teamed.
Yes.
All you know what I mean? Like it's like if that man created a mid range jumper, I mean he'd be averaging 60. If he could hit 75% of free throws. But either way, like in the era of his prime, if you remember, where he'd have a breakaway and like legitimately cross people over, spin and dunk and play like he was a two guard. I
Mhm.
mean, incredible. So
Until he gained all that weight, he was a savage.
true story. True story.
Who is someone that you point to as having like a memorable influence on you as you being the person being coached? So a coach that you grew up with who just really impacted you.
Um, there's many, but there's one that I feel like my basketball coach Boris was extremely influential. I really believe that I don't know where I'd be. The team that I played for went to three Final Fours in 4 years. I left this team Olympia. That was the best team in the country. All the NBA guys came through there. That's why I played, and then I left to go to this team called Yancha. We built it from nothing to something. It was almost like the movie the Expendable. No, not the Expendables, but what was it? With the football players. Um,
Oh,
Keanu Reeves played in it. Damn it.
the
The
replacements.
Replaceable, yeah. I think it was like the Replacements or something like that. It was kind of like that. It was like all the weird, players, kind of a
Mhm.
little crazy that came together and we did something incredible. And our coach, probably wasn't the best X's and O's coach. Not, I mean, I know he wasn't, but he was a great coach, and like he cared, man. Like he cared and he communicated and he could tell stories. And I mean, he was the person that was like, hey, man, like I know what you're doing, like, dude, if you keep going down this route, like there's only, there's no positive outcome. And then he also knew how to hurt me. He'd be like, he wouldn't play me, to teach me lessons, not hurt, and so I would change. I mean, I'd stop doing dumb shit. I'd come to practice earlier again. I'd stop selling drugs, as much. I mean, it sounds stupid, but like he influenced me so much. And it's also why I made the decision to go to the US, so to be honest, and that's a story that we didn't dive into, but a big reason for me becoming a coach, I would say, was the impact that coaches had in my life. And Boris been an example to what I wanted to be for others. Because I wanted to tilt. I don't give a shit who you are. Like you don't feel good about doing dirt. Like you don't come home and go like, man,
Mhm.
glad I sold another 1,000 pills and fucking 20 grams of cocaine. You don't do that. Like so subconsciously, it's eating at you. And what coaching gave me when I was still playing pro ball and I started coaching people, because I've been studying training since I was 13 years old. I was a geek about training, but it was because I wanted to be a better basketball player, jump higher, dunk, run faster, have like unlimited conditioning type shit. And when I started coaching people for nothing, at the end of the session, I got this feeling, and it was like addictive,
Yeah,
and
it
it
is.
felt because it was like people were like, man, that was a great session, dude. And it was something in me that was just like I got hooked on, and it was like, oh man, like I'm helping people, and like it kind of was like almost like I wanted to tilt the karma scale, from like doing bad shit to being like I want to do something good, and then I got hooked on the feeling of how people felt when I was coaching them. And so, you know, Boris was an incredible influence on me. And I definitely like again, I can name a number of coaches that really were influential and positive, but I think he was one of the most. And this will sound, like a lot of times, I've been fortunate to meet some of my heroes. One of my entrepreneurial heroes was and is, Richard Branson. I read everything about him, like all the biographies, autobiographies, all the stuff, right? Like, and so crazy because it's been 7 years now. I got to, we've been doing charity boot camps for 15 years, right? And love that. I love doing charity work. Still do a ton of charity work. I don't know how much money we've raised, hundreds of thousands of dollars, tons of
Amazing.
clothes, tons of food. And I've also, what I feel proud about is like I've taught hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of gym owners to do charity boot camps to raise money for their communities and get more leads. And it's like it's good for the business model, right?
Hmm.
And I bought like there's a famous marketer back in the day. His name was Yannick Silver. I don't know if you remember him. But Yannick was big and did a lot of his stuff. He released a book. It's called Evolved Enterprise, and his book was all about like how to be a for profit but give back. And bought it. And I'm one of those guys that gets upsold on everything. So bought 50 books because I wanted to give it to friends. Bought the course, and then it was like this questionnaire, like, hey, how are you running an evolved business? And I was like, oh man, like let me write about this. It was like this questionnaire, and I was like, hey, we do charity events and I teach charity events. And like I was like, man, we've actually done a lot of good. So I filled it out, and I guess it was part of this competition, and like 6 months later, I get an email and it's like, hey, you won this, a trip to Necker Island. Now it was from an email I didn't know. So I was like, that's some scammy bullshit. And I don't even respond to it. And like 3 days later, Yannick sends me an email directly from him. He's like, hey, Luka, like, hey, we sent you this email, maybe, but it's actually Yannick. And you've won a prize as the most evolved enterprise, small business. And you win a trip to Necker Island, with the Mavericks group. It's like, but it's like 2 weeks, And I was going to an event that I was committed to. I was like, I called him. I said, look, man, um, I got to pull out of this one. I'm going to Necker Island. I remember them going like, okay, that makes sense,
Yeah,
So I flew to the Virgin Islands, stayed there for 3 days, spent a day and a half on Necker. Spent time with Richard Branson. I mean, like,
very
and I mean, it was
cool.
insane. It was one of those crazy moments, and talked to him for 20 minutes and got insights. And he is, it's cool when you meet your kind of like your heroes, and they are who you thought they were. They're as cool,
Mhm.
and it made me even more inspired, made me even more fired up. All those moments, by the way, were kind of like things that were like, okay, I'm doing good stuff. I want to do more of this good stuff. Like I want to share more. I want to give more. And that was very, influential. Meeting, spending time with Gary Vee was, and I could go down the list, man. Like a lot of, people that were my mentors have become my best friends, and I could, go on and on and on about the names in the industry from John Berardi to Cressy to Martin Rooney to, I mean, like it's,
That's so cool, man.
it's and I think everybody, like you pick and choose that, and that you chisel them, they chisel you. I mean, that's the premise, right? They push you, you push them, and today it's been cool because people that I used to look up to call me for advice, and it's like that's meaningful kind of full circle type of stuff. And even to this day, it's like it's funny. People would consider me to be, I go keynote at big events, and it meant a ton to me. Mike Boyle hit me up, said, hey, look, I want you to keynote our spring seminar, um and it was kind of like, certain things as when you're a kid. I don't know, when I bought my first Mercedes, it was like, to some people it's like, I said, no, man, listen, like I was like a kid growing up in Yugoslavia. I was doing dirt, like, and even as a, when you're in crime, you're like, oh man, one day I'm gonna have a Mercedes, and you get in. There's a moment that kind of like some things come full circle, and it's like I remember, being at Perform Better events 19 years ago, seeing Mike Boyle, like, and then we become good friends now. But also, it's like there is a full circle moment to some of
Yeah.
these things that, again, I look back and I go, what we talked about the Viktor Frankl thing, like, I'm like, man, I'm proud of that. Hey, I got this big goal that I want to achieve, but man, I'm proud of that. Like, and I'm proud of this. And it kind of gives you that positive anxiety. I think it's healthy. It's healthy to stay grounded, but still push and be ambitious, but not have that ambition, burn you out and burn you to the ground and feel like you're never getting there. There doesn't exist, man. Like there's only growth and expansion.
Yeah, I've had a few full circle moments. Like, that first coach who I worked under at South Florida, Frank Wintrick, I actually coached him on his nutrition when he was going to do a endurance event. I've had a number of, coaches that I had worked under and mentored under work with me. Um, so it's been really, really cool to have that happen. And can I make a really random guess that first Mercedes you bought was white?
Hold up, let's see. Silver, but
Okay, I was
but
close.
but I
I was
did.
close.
It was silver, but my second one, which was the C63S Coupe AMG, was
Ooh, very
a
nicely done.
was a white one. It was actually was a Stormtrooper. Everything blacked out, but the car was white. Um, yeah. So I've been a Mercedes guy for like 14 years, 15 years.
I like it. I like it. Luca, I thoroughly enjoyed this comment. This is one of my favorite podcasts that I've done so far. Um, I love your perspective. I love the service first. mentality that you bring to the table. And I think it goes to show that if you do things that you love with the intent to serve others, good things are going to come back to you. The last question that I have, and this is where you're going to do my job for me, is if there was one person that you would like to see me interview on my podcast, who would it be? But you got to help me get them on.
I got to shout it out right now.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hmm. See, I didn't want to just throw something out there because I feel like I
You
don't
can
think
get
I've ever had. No, no. The thing is, I never had this long of a pause. But you know why? Like, because I'm thinking about the conversation that we had, and I think that I'm filtering through my head of like what would be the because I give you 50 names, but that's not the point, right? I'm thinking what would be like a very meaningful conversation. I'm thinking about somebody that's been in the industry for a long time that I respect, that has really good perspectives around, the mindset and perspective of
Mhm.
success in their journey that's been a struggle. Um, hmm. You know what? I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one because you
I'm
know why?
okay with that.
Because I want to be. Here's the thing, because I want to be honest, and not just fucking throw something out there, man.
I appreciate that. Um, everyone, I will have links to where you can find Luka in the show notes. Thank you so very much for joining me today. I know you're a busy man. You took time out of your day to join me on my podcast, and it definitely meant a lot to me. If there's one parting piece of wisdom, what do you got?
Hmm. One of the quote like I've got a lot of quotes on the walls of I was of the gym, which I love. Like, we put these massive, like beautiful kind of like quotes on the walls that still inspire me every day I walk in. And there's two quotes that are my favorite ones. One, if you don't remember, it's the man in arena.
Mhm.
So Google that and read it because it's a little bit longer. But the other one that's shorter and I really, really kind of love is that you don't choose your potential, but you choose to fulfill it. And you know, it because it makes you focus on what you can do. It's like my father comes to mind because he's I mean had last year he had cancer surgery. Both my parents have Parkinson's, and the most viral video that I've ever posted was just me being proud of my dad. At the gym in Slovenia, videoing him doing shoulder tap push-ups, because he comes to the gym twice a week. He boxes once a week. He goes for long walks, and
That's
man,
awesome.
he's got every reason to not be able to do shit and be a victim. And he does what he can do. And to me, it's like at any point in time in life, and sometimes you get sick, sometimes things happen, they're not your fault. And like, your potential may be lower, but the thing is that like you can still choose to fulfill all that potential that you have. And honestly, I don't think we any of us ever get there. We're just trying to get. It's like this video game where we're constantly battling boss, the video game of life. And that quote is meaningful to me because if you complain, I would just say like, are you choosing to fulfill your potential? Like today, like what did you spend your time doing? And I think it comes full circle to what I said earlier. Most important question in life, like who do you want to become? It's that. Like, do you want to fulfill the potential that you have? Forget about nature, what you got. Like, are you fulfilling it?
I love
And
that.
remember that.
Dude, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one.
My pleasure, brother.